Hey, I'm Tony Taylor, and this platform exists for one reason. You, the voter. Every election, we're asked to choose the people who will make the decisions that affect our families, our communities, our schools, our businesses, and our future. Yet too often, we make those decisions based on campaign ads, mailers, sound bites, or headlines. I wanted to create something different. On the Record is a place where candidates step away from campaign slogans and have a real long form conversation about who they are, what they believe, and how they intend to lead once they're elected. My commitment is simple. Every candidate is treated with respect. Irregardless of politics, every candidate is given the opportunity to answer meaningful questions. And every voter deserves the opportunity to have the information that they need to make an informed decision. Whether you're voting for city council member, school board member, commissioner, sheriff, state representative, state senator, member of Congress, or any other elected office, my hope is that these conversations will help you better understand the people that are asking for your vote. As you watch, I encourage you to take notes. Think about what matters to you the most. Compare the candidates, the answers, and remember that many of our guests have agreed to continue engaging with you and your questions long after this interview. Now let's get on the record. Hey, what's up? I'm Tony Taylor. Are you here for Leaders Lead the podcast? Let's go. Hey, how did you beat me? Look, let me tell you about this podcast. We got like 5 seconds. Leaders Lead the podcast is about leadership. Not just the leader without, but the leader within. All of these leaders that I'm talking to across the country, well, across the world now, they have one thing in common, and that's that they have overcome some insurmountable obstacles to get to where they're at today. Come on, let's go. Before we meet today's guest, I'd like for you to know that every candidate on the ballot for this office has been offered the same opportunity to participate on the record. Our mission isn't to tell you who to vote for. Our mission is to give you the information you need so that you can make a decision for yourself. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the invite.
Give us your name and tell us what position that you are fighting for.
Yeah, well, we've got a pretty crowded primary. First thing I'll say is that last time I ran for an office, it was Port Angeles City Council. I won. I ran unopposed. And a little bit of words of wisdom that I was given was you want to either be running unopposed or scared. And last time I was running unopposed. This time I'm running for a representative, 24th Legislative District with 4 other candidates. So this time I'm running scared.
You're running scared this time.
I think what that means is, look, you if you're not running unopposed, then you want to be putting in the work and acting like every moment counts. And so that's what I'm doing here. Just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a father of 2, a grandfather, Navy combat veteran, 20-year law enforcement officer, and as I said, a Port Angeles City Council member. And my campaign is about prioritizing rural voices in Olympia. I hope to be the next state representative for the 24th Legislative District and lean on my personal and my professional experiences to advocate for solutions to the issues that our district faces. Those issues are not abstract to me. I've lived them, I've been there, and I've struggled through them, and thankfully I've overcome them. So they're real to me, and they're the same ones, the issues that we face today, as the ones that I struggled with as a young adult and somebody returning from military service. Whether that's affordable housing, family wage jobs, public safety, I've been there. And I'll work to put our district at the center of policy and funding decisions that improve our district's standard of living.
I'm curious, can you tell us a little bit about those experiences? What experiences would you say that has shaped the person that you are today?
Yeah, you bet, man. So both of my parents were Marines. And if you can imagine, when you're told to go clean your room, it's just not a matter of shoving everything under your bed. When you have 2 Marines as parents, it becomes a white glove inspection. So just having that sense of service come from them was pretty huge and instrumental. But look, growing up, we had a lot of housing insecurity. My parents struggled as veterans entering the workforce to be able to afford housing, and we lived in apartments, duplexes, triplexes, quadplex, all the plexes, right? And living in trailers. We lived with grandma until finally my parents were able to qualify for her first-time homeowners program for low-income families to get into their first home. Now, that colors my perspective on housing on one front, but I'll add this. I actually am coming to you today from that same house, which I now own, because, unfortunately, years later, my parents got divorced. My mom took over the mortgage for the house, and due to predatory lending in that era, she was going to lose the house. So as I was getting out of the Navy, I thankfully qualified to purchase the house myself. I was able to make repairs and remodels to the house so that we could both live here comfortably. And that's where I'm at right now. That's where I've been ever since I returned from the Navy to the community that I love.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's pretty cool. So you're living in the same house that your mom and dad purchased like way back before. And I remember when you told me that story before, and I was just like, man, that's pretty cool. Would you say that the challenges that they face during that era are the same challenges that maybe you might be facing now when it comes to the economy?
Yeah, well, I think a couple things. When my parents were raising us, it was just my dad that worked, and my mom managed the home. That's virtually impossible right now unless you're a top tier earner. So that's one thing. And even if you just go into the mid 90s, when I started entering the workforce, I worked 3 jobs just to pay the bills. And it was usually some combination of restaurant work, retail work, maybe like some light construction or something like that, and fast food sprinkled in there. And I'd have to cobble all of these hours together just to pay the bills. Now, look, this is something that my parents passed on to me, which isn't necessarily great. I remember being a kid and getting that celebratory pizza once a month. We'd either go out or order it. And I thought, like, this is really cool. This is our family time. And it was our family time. And it was very meaningful to me. But I learned, being a young adult and working several jobs, that pizza meant so much more. It meant that we got to a point where we could pay all of the bills, set the bill counter back to 0, take a deep breath, and order pizza, not have to think about any problems that night, and begin to start the next month the same process. Now, what we were celebrating was surviving. It wasn't celebrating any great accomplishment. It was just celebrating keeping our head above water. And in that process, we were never, ever going to get ahead. It was just going to repeat the same cycle over and over again. And I know that that's what a lot of the families in the 24th Legislative District are doing. One thing that I like to comment on is we hear a lot about kitchen table politics when it comes to campaign season, right? Mm-hmm. And I got to say, people aren't sitting down at their kitchen table and having discussions about politics. They're sitting down at their kitchen table and discussing which bills they can postpone, which ones they can pay, and which ones are more than 1 month past due, so that they can strategize and take a finite amount of money, especially in this economy, and pay the bills that they need to be able to survive. And I'll add this: to have kitchen table politics, you have to have a kitchen table. And we have people in our district and across our state that don't even have a kitchen table because of the housing insecurity that they're suffering from today.
Oh man, yeah, you articulated that so well. I've talked to freaking hundreds of folks, and exactly the way that you described it is what they're going through. So tell me, if we were sitting at the kitchen table, well, and you walked out of the room, and I'm sitting there with somebody that knows you the best, what would they say about you? Some things that maybe most people wouldn't.
Yeah, I would like to be a fly on the wall for those. So I could only guess, but what I'll say is what I hope that they say, or what I've heard people tell me. In fact, I was just talking to a friend of mine that served on an elected commission with me last year, and she said, Mark, I support you. And when I'm asked why I support you, I tell him it comes down to this. It comes down to his ethics. So what I hope is that, more people have seen that, experienced that in my personal and professional career, one as a veteran, a Special Forces combat veteran, and then later in life as a career law enforcement officer, and then member of boards and commissions and elected official. I think that, I've dedicated my life to public service, and that's something that's been very meaningful to me. Service above self is not just a slogan to me, it's a way of life, and serving that with humility is extremely important to me. So what I would hope that people are saying around the kitchen table when they look at my campaign is that I have a proven record of being there for people, and stepping up in positions when we need leaders to step up, stand up, and stick up for the things that are right.
Wow. Was there a defining moment that made you say, you know what? I'm going to run for state rep?
Yeah. Well, I think it was sort of a journey. Like I said, I've worn a uniform since I was 19, so I am no stranger to public service. And after serving my country, I returned to serve my community as a law enforcement officer. Now, fast forward from that time to COVID, and I was looking for ways that I could serve outside of my 9 to 5. And boy, as we learned, COVID, just like any other crisis that hits a rural district, it hits it so much harder than anywhere else for a variety of reasons. So first thing I did is I talked to my daughter. She's 14 now. She was younger at the time. And I said, honey, we're going to the food bank. We went to the food bank and volunteered to do deliveries there. We put together boxes and we delivered food together to individuals who didn't feel safe leaving their home during the pandemic. And it was after that that I thought, I can really continue to serve outside of my regular hours and outside of my professional career in a career that is based on volunteering. And I continue to do that as a member of Peninsula Dispute Resolution Center, City Parks and Recreation Commission, Homelessness Task Force, and Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity was really special to me because with Habitat for Humanity, we really look to address the housing crisis.
Wow. I'm going to ask you some quick questions before we get into community. You could just do one word, one sentence, completely.
Let's do it, lightning round.
All right. Favorite local restaurant?
You're putting me on the spot.
I'm sure whatever that local restaurant, they'll appreciate you shouting them out here too.
Okay, so I'm gonna do it like this. And I'm gonna do the politician thing and not answer with one word. I like to get avocado toast from Grayson's. I like to take my girlfriend out to Cocapelli or Dockside.
Okay.
And, favorite dessert is Welly's ice cream.
I love it. You spread it out. That's really cool. Favorite place in general inside of your district?
Lake Crescent, 100% Lake Crescent. I love going to Lake Crescent. I love going to Lake Crescent Lodge. My daughter's had her birthday party there almost every year. And I think, this might be the first year she doesn't have it there. It's just a place that's incredibly special to me. President Roosevelt visited years and years ago. And it's just a magical, peaceful, serene place that is absolutely beautiful. And if you have never been, please come out and visit.
I might have to check that out. Coffee or tea?
I'll give you the tour.
All right. Are you a coffee or tea guy?
I'm a coffee guy. I'm actually a cold coffee guy. I've been into cold brew lately.
Morning person or night owl?
Ooh, boy. I'd have to say morning. Yeah, I'd have to say morning, especially as I've gotten older. I know, 9 o'clock rolls around and I'm like, boy, what am I still doing up?
Man, I wish I could go to bed at 9. It's interesting. I feel like a lot of this is what I've noticed. A lot of folks that are running for office, they say, yeah, I was a morning person, but I'm a night owl now, man. I get a text message like 1, 2, 3 in the morning. And so that's interesting. Favorite book?
Yeah, I think too that, the thing is you end up doing a lot of your reading at night and a lot of your constituent reading. Favorite book? I'm going to say Give Us the Ballot. That was one that I mentioned a little while ago, but I'll also say for a novel, The Count of Monte Cristo.
Okay. Favorite podcast or show?
The Daily, New York Times, The Daily.
Okay. Favorite Washington destination?
Okay, so I have to go beyond Lake Crescent then.
Yep.
And then I will add Claylock
Okay.
Beach.
All right. What is one thing that, like, from this interview or just like people in public, what's one thing that people would never know about you?
Oh man. I'm such an audiobook nerd.
Mm.
I mean, we talked about it.
We
I
did
think
talk
that,
about that probably about
yeah,
for 10 minutes before we started.
yeah. I'm such an audiobook nerd. I mean, it's silly. I'll tell you what. I'll give you a really nerdy one because I think that audiobooks are increasingly popular, and I love when people subscribe to audiobooks through their local library. But a friend just suggested to me um, Carl the Dungeon Crawler, something like that, and that's from a local artist. So I think he's had a Gig Harbor, and so that's an especially nerdy one that I've started to listen to lately.
Okay, I love it. So let's talk a little bit about community.
Yeah.
As you knocked on doors and talked with voters, what concerns have you heard um, over and over in the 24th district? I would imagine that you've been knocking on doors, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I got to say thanks for those people who've had front porch conversations. Thank you to those people who invited me in to sit at their kitchen tables, to sit on their couch. And really cool bonus of doing all of that is meeting all the cool dogs that are guarding their front yards and getting to see them too. But
Have you been chased by one yet?
I haven't been. Well, you know what? I've gotten some good intel. As I've left one door and gone to another, I've heard, "Hey, are you going to this house? Because they got a dog. You might want to steer clear of that one." And I heeded that advice. So,
that'll be a good moment for a good campaign video. You freaking running down the street.
I will run away from dogs for you if they're attacking.
I love it.
No, man. But yeah, a lot of it's the things that we talk about: housing instability, the cost of housing, public safety issues. Particularly, I think I'd probably lump the public safety issue into one of the other things I hear a lot about, which is federal overreach and general despair in government at the highest levels. So, when I look at that as a law enforcement officer, I think to myself, one of the core duties of a law enforcement officer is to protect people's safety and to protect their constitutional rights. So that's an area that I'm happy and proud to talk about on the campaign trail, is that, in this time, it's important that we've had people that have worn the uniform, whether it be in the military or as first responders, who have taken the oath to support and defend the Constitution, to stand up in this time and say the nonsense that is going on from the top and affecting us at the state level is wrong. Another issue that I hear about is just economic stability, living wage jobs. I hear that people that have kids that have been living with them for a long time and their children are still living with them because they can't find a living wage, family wage job that pays enough for them to be able to get out on their own or save enough for their own house. I mean, look, the starter home, that's not real anymore. And that's a problem.
Yeah. When you say nonsense at the top, what type of nonsense would you say?
Sure. I'll give a quick example. I just gave this example at a candidate forum recently when our Secretary of Defense said last year to a graduating military academy that diversity is not our strength. On that very same day, I was speaking to a high school saying the exact opposite as a veteran. Diversity is our strength, and we are a diverse nation. We are an immigrant nation, and that is core to our identity. So when I talk about nonsense at the top, there's probably several examples that I could give, but that's the first one that comes to mind.
I love it. That makes so much sense. Is there any question, like any stories that you've heard since you've been on the campaign trail that just sticks with you?
Yeah, a lot of them that really stick with me have to deal with housing and children just trying to make it and struggling to make it, having to move away from the area, and also the cost of healthcare and how people are really having to decide between paying for healthcare or paying for the other bills that they need to survive on, whether that's their rent or their mortgage, and choosing between those things or their medication or seeking care or even postponing care. Another one that I hear about along the lines of healthcare is people working really hard and retiring after a long career and then having to get another job just to pay for healthcare. And look, that's not how most of us have thought about our retirement time, is getting a second job just to have something that should, be something that's basic and has to do with decent healthcare and dignity.
Wow, that's interesting. So it sounds like they are open and they're actually sharing some really personal things with you.
I got to tell you, it's really humbling to be invited onto somebody's porch or in their house and to be a complete stranger and to be vulnerable myself and put myself out there, asking for their support, asking for their vote, and then to hear some of the most sacred and vulnerable stories from these individuals. That little bit of trust to me is extremely important and meaningful. And it, I got to tell you, it recharges my batteries, man, when I'm out there knocking on doors, when it's really hot, when, I wore Romeos when knocking on doors when I probably should have worn some running shoes, because that's what I was advised to do. Look, hearing these stories, it's meaningful to me and it's powerful to me. And it's the kind of stories that reaffirm the experience that I had growing up, the experience that I had as a young service member returning to the community and looking to raise my family as well. And look, I think that that's the thing, is when you put people in Olympia, you want to know that they get it. And you want to know that when they craft policy and when they vote, they're voting because they get it. And they're voting for policies that are going to affect positive change in those areas that people are most concerned with.
Are there any issues that you feel like aren't getting enough attention?
Yeah, what's really interesting right now is that people are struggling so much at the working class level and below. People are struggling so much that a lot of the issues that I'm hearing about are the same. And if I had to add some, I would add the state of rural healthcare and the availability and the access of rural healthcare. But I got to tell you, from the 24th legislative district, that's no secret to you. And thank goodness we're hearing some concern with that at the federal level as well. And thankfully that concern, along with housing, has been bipartisan.
Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I've asked that question to almost all of our guests, and that right there, what you just said, is one of the top priorities that folks feel like they're not getting enough attention with. So thank you for saying that. Let's talk a little bit about leadership. Can you tell me about a difficult decision that you've made when there wasn't a clear answer? I'm sure you've made a lot. You've been a cop, you've been a Navy veteran.
Yeah. So I think that the best way to answer that is to talk about how I approach issues and how I approach problems. And, not every time is there something clear and definable, a clear and bright light rule or precedence for you to follow. And in that case, I fall back on my ethics and I look at what is the right thing to do. And I divorce that from any feelings, any personal feelings, or any biases that I have. And I look at it as, a clean bill, so to speak, and judge it just on the merits of the issue, removing any personal feelings that I might have, that I'm unconscious bias from that, and going for the answer that does the most good, that is right by the individual, right for the person.
Thank you. I'm curious, is there an issue that changed your mind over the years? Like you thought one way, but now you think another? And I'm curious to know, if so, like what caused you to rethink your position?
Yeah, you bet. And I was actually going to give this answer in the previous question, so I'm glad you brought that up. Don't ask, don't tell. As a military service member, I just thought that, that was the greatest policy ever. I was a young man in the military. It was sold to us as a great compromise, and that was something that was good for everybody. And boy, I tell you, after getting to know our LGBTQIA+ community and having friends and family in that community and just learning and maturing over the years myself, that's something that I learned of how harmful that was. And actually, that was a conversation I just had recently with somebody, and I was telling them about my evolution on the don't ask, don't tell policy. And what they said to me was, look, Mark, that's funny you mentioned that, because all I wanted to do growing up was to be in the Army, and I could not be in the Army. And
Mm.
what that meant was maybe they could be in the Army, but they couldn't be in the Army and be themselves. And to ask people to sign up and serve your country, but deny who you are, not only deny who you are, hide who you are, and pretend to be somebody else just for the opportunity to serve your country, was wrong. And that is an issue that I thought was a good compromise originally, and come to know how damaging that policy was later in life.
That makes sense. I'm glad that you shared that. Are there any concerns that you have right now as you look at some of the things that's happening in the Department of Defense?
Yeah, I think that we're seeing a hyper politicization of what's going on in DoD. And by the way, I did say DoD and not Department of I don't know, whatever they're calling it now.
Department of War.
Yeah. Allegedly. Look, yeah, the hyper politicization, we when I was a service member, it was really drilled into us how we follow and obey lawful orders, and we have a duty to uphold the Constitution. And not only that, we have a duty to be ambassadors overseas for America and behave in a certain way. So when I see what are essentially political rallies going on at military bases, or motorcycle crosses going on across the White House lawn, it's extremely disheartening to me as a military service member. And it's tough. And I think it's a tough time too to bring up our youth in the military and try to explain to them the difference between a service that really tried to stay out of the political fray, and that one that seems to be increasingly invited to participate in it.
Yeah, you brought up the LGBTQ plus community earlier, and I'm curious, how do you plan to be an ally for that community if you're elected for office?
Yeah, good question. Show up, be visible, be vocal, be understanding, listen, and be empathetic. Those are everything that we can do. And I do that on a personal basis every day, but I think it's incumbent upon our leaders to also stand up and do those things, and do them publicly and do them loudly, so that people understand that LGBTQIA+ rights are human rights.
Well said, Mark. Let's talk a little bit about values. Public service often requires balancing different priorities. Can you tell us a time in your life where your actions demonstrated the values that you hope to bring into office?
Yeah, I think that it's sort of a sum total of things that I've done throughout my lifetime that have always been guided by certain principles, certain core values. Even taking those from the Navy, and honor, courage, and commitment, and always acting within those things. I do look at every decision that I make, and I wonder, how does this legislative decision, how does this public safety decision, how does this decision as a board member, how does that positively impact the targeted audience? And I go with that. But look, maybe just going beyond this, I suppose I'm sort of hesitant to bring this up. Maybe we'll just clip it out later. But when I got my first city council paycheck, I kind of forgot that I got paid for doing that. I just do it because I believe in it, and I believe in serving the people. So when I got that first paycheck, it caught me by surprise. So I took it down to our public utilities, our city utilities, and I said, here's my first city council paycheck. I want to donate it exactly as is, and I want to donate it to the fund that we have to help individuals who cannot pay their utility bills. So I think that that's a story that I don't share with people, I think, because I'm not looking for praise, but I think it's a good example of the way that I approach things and the ethics that I use.
I'm curious, why would you want me to clip that part out?
Because the things that I do, for others, I don't want, that needs to stand independent of anything else. I do them because in and of themselves, they benefit the other person, individual, or group. And they're just the right thing to do. And they're not things that I want to campaign off of. I don't want public notoriety for those things. I just want to do them because they're the right thing.
Oh, wow. I'm definitely not going to clip it out. and I'll tell you why. I feel like, and this, obviously this interview isn't about me, but I'll tell you kind of like my thoughts on that. I feel like the way that our media around politicians these days, it's a polarization. Who could be the most dreadful? Who could say the meanest things? And I think that there should be more light shown on people like you that are actually doing great things. I think the people, me as a freaking voter, I'll tell you what, if I'm voting for you, I'm like, man, this dude donated his freaking paycheck. He goes to Habitat to Humanity. And the kicker for that is he doesn't want anybody to know about it. So I think that for me, it's my job to shine the light on what it is that you're doing. So with your permission, I would love to keep that in there.
It's not something that I brag about. It's not something that I'm looking for notoriety. I use it as an example of my ethics, and it's your show. You do with it what you want.
I like it. You're still pushing. You're still pushing. No, man, take it out. But no, I can appreciate that. And I think the viewers and the listeners, I think they'll take something special about that exchange when it comes to you and your character. Because as voters, we want to know who the people are that we're voting for. You mentioned something about groups not too long ago. And I want to ask you, is there a group that you feel like is overlooked or underserved? And this could be inside of your district. This could be outside of your district. This could be statewide, worldwide, but just in general.
Yeah, man, there's a lot. There's a lot of groups. They're not doing too well. They've been overlooked. They've been cast aside. And there's not just one, and I was just thinking the other day, recently endorsed by Sheet Metals Local. And in an age where we see billionaires, trillionaires created, the working class who laid the foundation for that success through infrastructure and labor, they're increasingly forgot. Their wages are not increasing in the way that corporate profits are. And we're seeing headlines of trillionaires, and we're not seeing headlines of the eradication of homelessness. We're not seeing headlines of a housing construction boom, right? And yet we're seeing Wall Street having the best days ever. And it's just totally insane to me. So I just think, we have a lot of underserved and overlooked members of communities. And I think right now, if you look at people that are working hard and just trying to survive and just trying to live their life and do what's right, look, they ain't trying to be billionaires. They're just trying to make it, and they're just trying to be comfortable. And I think that them, along with a lot of other groups, are being overlooked right now. People work hard, man, and Barack Obama said it. You can work hard, you can do everything right, and sometimes it's just not enough. So what do you need in that case? What do you need when that happens? What you need is your friends, your family, and your neighbors to stand up for you, right? But you also need your government to have your back and to create a level playing field so that you can succeed in the way that we see the disproportionate amount of success with some others.
Mark, you're running, and I don't want to assume you're running as a Democrat, correct?
Correct.
If elected, how will you make sure that you're listening to not only the people that voted for you, but also for the people who didn't?
Yeah, great question. Here's the deal. I want people on the other side of the aisle to make my ideas better. And I want to make their ideas better. That's where I think that our political system works the best. And, maybe I'm naive, but I followed politics since I was 11 years old, super nerdy, I know. And I also grew up watching The West Wing. So perhaps I have a rose-colored picture of what things should be like and look like. But, there was a time when we agreed on the course, we agreed on the destination, but we didn't necessarily agree on all the logistical methods to get there. And I'd like to get back to a place where we can do that. You look at a lot of the bills that come out of Olympia right now, and the vast majority of them are bipartisan. But I'll add this: the first office I ever ran for was something really nerdy. really obscure, called Charter Review Commission. And at the end of the charter review meeting, charter being the county charter, the county's constitution, just to keep it simple, at the end of that meeting, the first people that I went to speak with were not the ones that I agreed with. They were the ones that I disagreed with. And that was important to me because the ones that agreed with me, the ones that I agreed with, I already knew where they stood. I already had that perspective. What I needed was the missing link, the perspective that I didn't have. And I wanted those perspectives before moving forward on any decisions.
That makes sense. Have you been tracking what's going on with the Charter Review Commission here lately? Are you talking about the Pierce County Charter Review or
Clallam County? Though I understand that this is Pierce County's year.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Have you been tracking any of that stuff?
I have not. I'd be interested to learn about what's going on because, that being my first office, it was an interesting experience. And I got to tell you, when you take 15 people, many of whom had no previous elected experience, you put them into a room for a year and you say, give me your best ideas. It could become a pretty rowdy and rambunctious group, but I think we did a lot of good work.
No, I can imagine. What are some things that you feel like that you took away from that experience?
Relationships. Yeah, relationships, process, listening to people. Like I said, I always wanted to go out to members of the gallery and immediately talk to those people and clarify any positions I may have, get any clarity from them on any public comment that they gave, and take that on board before moving forward with any decisions. Along with working in a large body, a 15-member body, to come to conclusions and make decisions and recommendations, it was extremely valuable.
So if you're elected for state rep, how will you make sure that people without money, people without influence will have the same opportunity to be heard?
Well, I think that goes back to the core of my candidacy is I've been there and I've lived that. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who don't have the money, who don't have the influence. I'm looking to represent those people. And guess what? The people who have money and influence, they'll find me. They know where to find me. They have the money and influence to be able to do that. But I'll be out actively seeking individuals and inviting individuals to tell me their experiences, the underrepresented, so that I can be that representation, that voice for them in Olympia.
Let's transition a little bit and talk about decision making, because I know you're going to have to make a lot of decisions for your constituents. And I'm curious, when it comes to decision making, what's one issue that you're willing to compromise, and what's an issue that you simply won't?
I won't compromise on protecting individuals' rights. I just won't. If I'm in favor of anything that we can produce out of Olympia that becomes more protective of an individual's rights. A lot of people would say that our Constitution makes an individual's rights more powerful than what is guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. So a stripping of an individual's rights is a no for me. I think that it is extremely important, coming from the perspective of a veteran who's fought for those freedoms and a law enforcement officer who returned to their community to uphold those freedoms. That's a no compromise.
If budget restraints force you to choose between two different priorities that you deeply care about, how would you make that decision?
Well, I think that, let me try and think of one right now. So if we have to do a budget priority where more money was placed in something that's meaningful to me with housing, or something that's meaningful to me like healthcare, those things are both extremely important to our legislative district. So the first thing that I would do is look at what have we accomplished in the past to make things better for housing or for rural healthcare, and how far were we able to progress that, and what impact has it made. Now, after that, I think that the one that is least efficient, the one that we have done the least on, and the one where people are hurting the most is where we need to invest the next bucket of money. And that's where I would make a decision to choose between one or the other.
So I want you to imagine with me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you have a pretty good imagination, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So imagine you and I, we're sitting here a year from today, and hopefully we can get back together
Yeah.
and we can talk about the work that you're doing in Olympia. What is one thing that that you feel like your constituents that you'll be able to be like, hey, Tony, I actually did this one thing. I did this one thing, and I would love for the constituents to know that, you know what? Mark kept his freaking word.
Mm.
What bone are you freaking not dropping once you go to Olympia?
Yeah, economic development, man, living wage jobs. A lot of the issues that we're facing come down to that. And with housing, it is a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation, because in order to court jobs, you have to have the job opportunity, and then you also have to have the housing for those individuals. But look, I think that we have so many people struggling, and our rural healthcare system is struggling, that living wage jobs, promoting economic development and bringing the next level of employment to our district, that's the one that I really want to focus on. If I could only focus on one, because I think it solves so many of our problems. If it doesn't solve it, it at least contributes to making those issues less serious than they are now. For example, if we have more economic opportunity out here, we have more family wage jobs, then rural healthcare centers are going to be seeing patients who have insurance and who pay from their insurance at a rate that's higher than what they're being reimbursed from Medicare or Medicaid from. And also, look, job is really core to a lot of people's identity and their self-worth and their happiness. I remember hearing somebody say, the one person who has the most control over your mood for the day is your boss. And man, I don't know, I think that's like kind of true. And when you have a good job and a good boss and you're getting paid a decent wage, a lot of life's problems can be solved through the means with which you're able to move forward in life after having a secure job.
That makes so much sense. I feel a lot of pressure when you said that. Like, man, am I contributing positively to my employees' day? Oh, man, that's good. That's good. You got me thinking now. At the end of your first term, how will you measure whether or not you've been successful?
Did I show up for my constituents? Not every battle am I going to be able to win for my constituents. That's just the reality. And anybody who says they're going to win every battle for their constituents is not being fair, not being honest. But judge me on this. Did I show up for every battle? Did I fight every fight? And did I do what I could to deliver on the promises? And did I start ready again in the next session to start those fights all over again and hope for a win there? Judge me by that. I'm going to work hard. Look at my work ethic, look at where I show up, look at how I show up, and look at the conversations that I have, and look at my commitment to getting the job done, if not in one session, then the following, and so on.
Wow. When you said that, it reminded me of, you ever seen We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
When he said, I cannot guarantee that everyone will come home, but one thing that I can guarantee is that my boots will be the first and the last on the battlefield.
I like it. And look, man, we need leaders like that. We need fighters. We need people who are willing to say, I've been there, I've lived that. And by the way, I don't know, I probably know a little something or other about conflict resolution and fighting for wins myself.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, look, I think that if you just go back to my time in the military and representing America abroad and serving in combat, I think that it gives you a certain sort of mindset, a mindset of being mission oriented, having a goal, and looking forward to achieving that goal. Now, I was in a special forces program called SWCC, Special Warfare Combat Crewman, and we had to go through a lengthy selection process. So within that selection process, you can imagine there was a lot of mental challenges, a lot of physical challenges, a lot of environmental challenges. And I stuck through those to see through my goal and serve in the Navy in that capacity. And then after that, go downrange. And similarly, after returning from serving the country and coming back and serving my community, you know, some of those variables, those training variables played out too in law enforcement. And again, you know, it's not, you don't go out imagining that you're going to have a perfect day every day and it's going to be sunny weather and everybody's going to get along with whatever decisions are made. But you have a goal in mind and you have a mission in mind, and you go out and do that within the framework of the law that you've been afforded, and going out and doing that in good faith and treating with everybody with dignity and respect. And I think that those experiences over the years, you know, 20 years in law enforcement, 7 years in the Navy, have given me a good platform to be able to go out and tackle challenges, be a fighter, and know how to come up victorious and never give up. The slogan for SWCC: on time, on target, never quit.
Ooh, I love it. And today you were on time. You've been on target, and you're not quitting.
Well, I was early, and that's another Navy thing. If you're not early, you're late.
Yeah, I know. 15 to 15 to 15 to 15.
There you go. There you go.
But I love that. And especially if, man, I cannot imagine I don't even have friends that are Marines. No, I'm not going to say that. I do have some friends that are Marines, but I only can have a handful of them, because I was in the Marine Corps myself. But I cannot imagine having 2 Marines for freaking parents. Oh my God. There's no, you would be on time, even if you didn't join the military yourself. Yeah, you would have no choice but to be on time for everything, I would imagine.
You know, I was asked, my dad is one of the kindest people I know. He'd give you the shirt off his back. He's just extremely kind and compassionate. My mom is so loving and taught me everything of what it meant to be a service to your community. She was a coach for girls sports teams, softball, basketball in the community. And, you know, between the two of them, particularly my mom in this example, she really taught me what it meant to be a Democrat. You know, what it meant to be a Democrat, meaning you're there for the most vulnerable people. Mm-hmm. That you stand up for what's right, that you stand up for unions, that you stand up and make sure that the little guy is being taken care of. And, you know, I didn't get that when I was younger. And I started to understand it later in life when my mom, you know, I was like, what is a party? Why do we belong to this political party, and what does it mean? And, you know, to learn those things from my mom and to take them into my own life and pass those values on to my children has been pretty cool, you know? So my mom's been a pretty big influence in my life. But you know, she's also one of the strongest women I know, having been a Marine Corps veteran herself.
Sounds like, I would imagine, is she proud of you for what you're doing right now, for what you're running?
Yeah, I think probably one of the coolest things she said, she can be pretty reserved. She said to me one day when I was running for city council, I just want to tell you, Mark, that's just so cool that you're doing that. It's something that I thought of when I was young and knew that it would never happen. So to see you do this has been an extreme proud moment for me.
Oh, that's incredible. How cool is that? I don't care who you are, but who you are, what you've done, what position, what status you have, but to hear a parent say, I'm proud of you. I mean, it just gives me goosebumps thinking about that. Do you find yourself now seeking her counsel when you're talking to her about these things, or do you talk to her about the race at all?
I do. And I'll ask her to watch this, for example. I ask her to watch all of the candidate forums and debates that we have, and I ask her opinions. Anytime we print literature, I ask her to take a look at it and just get her sense of it. So yeah, definitely. I mean, look, man, I mean, like, if you're not gonna listen to your mom, you know, I mean, like, who are you gonna listen to, right? It's like they're the ones that'll give it to you straight.
100%. No, you got a good point with that. So how the debates, have y'all had a lot of debates and a lot of forums so far?
Yeah, we've had 3 candidate forums, so not a traditional debate, though I think most people would just refer to them casually as a debate. And I think they've gone really well. It's given me a chance to get my story out there to people that don't know me, talk about the issues that I'm really passionate about, and you know, stay positive on the other candidates. We've got 4 other candidates in the race. my campaign isn't about why you shouldn't vote for so-and-so. It's about why you should vote for me. And I've enjoyed the opportunity and look forward to more opportunities before the primary to get out and have those candidate forums and make those connections with people.
Yeah. Why is that important for you to talk about the issues, like things that you're going to do, and you specifically providing for the community that service versus the other candidate? Why is that important for you?
Yeah, it's important to me because I don't look at another candidate's motivation and reason why they might be running. I come into it assuming that they come into the decision to run for office with the best possible motivation. So I'm not really looking to take any guesses as to why somebody might be doing running for office, other than the fact that they just believe that they want to do right for the community and that they are the best person. And I expect them to make their arguments for why. And that's what I'm going to focus on, is making my arguments for how my life experiences and my personal experiences line up with the issues that our legislative district is facing, both while I was growing up, returning from military service, and it's sadly, unfortunately, now we're dealing with a lot of the same issues that we were dealing with before.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, it's a good question. We've made improvement. Actually, Clallam County is a recipient of the Recompete grant. Thank you to Derek Kilmer for all his hard work on that. But it recognized the struggles that we're having in this area. And look, it's not sustainable. It hasn't been sustainable since I was a high school student in the 90s. And even my own son, he lived with me for a year after he got out of military because of housing prices. He lived with me for a year to get his feet underneath him, for him and his young family. And he ended up getting employed with another law enforcement agency. He had to move, but that's the tragedy that we're finding a lot of our young families are doing, our youth and our young families. And unfortunately, some of our career adults are having to leave the area just to find a job that pays enough money for them to live.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Can you tell me one time where you fought for somebody that couldn't fight for themselves? And the reason that I ask that question is that, I often look at, our legislators as the fighters, the people that are blazing the trails, the people that are creating the guardrails.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I'll answer broadly first. And as a member of boards and commissions that have to deal with our unhoused community, individuals needing dispute resolution, or those related to trying to find a home, under what Habitat for Humanity helps out with. Certainly in those areas, I've advocated for and fought for people to be able to have access to the services that they need, or opportunity for the housing that's available to them. I think, on a more personal level, I'll leave this one a little bit broad, a little bit vague. I've opened up my house to friends and family members who have been struggling and would have faced housing insecurity if not given any other opportunity. And, sometimes that was kind of rough, but like I said earlier, I go back to what's the right thing to do and what's the right thing in my capacity to be able to help with, and, and help individuals fight and get back on their feet, whether they're facing housing instability or mental health issues or drug addiction issues. So it's something that's pretty personal to me, to be able to be a fighter for somebody, and to know that, even though I struggled in my youth, and thanks to having employment now and being a 20-year member of a union who fought for us to have decent pay, I have some privilege in my life. I have some privilege to be able to run for office, for one, and I plan on using that privilege to help others, like I've done throughout my life.
Wow. Beautifully said, Mark. I'm sure the people are listening to this and it's just like, man, we're going to vote for Mark.
Hey, man, you want to move up to my district?
Oh man, what? So I'm curious from you. Is there, as we wind down, because I got one final question.
Yeah.
After this, is there a question that you were hoping that I would ask today that I didn't? If so, what is it, and how would you answer it?
I wasn't hoping for a question. I think this is great, by the way. I think that you've done a really good job of drawing out who I am. A question that I'm commonly asked is, who provided the most influence for you? So I'll ask myself and answer that. And it's not just an individual. It goes back to the example that I gave of going out and talking to people that I disagree with first. And what I mean by that is, I don't have necessarily one person who was more influential than other. It's the sum total of my life experiences from my parents, my family, my friends, supervisors that I've had, colleagues that I've had, people that I've agreed with, disagreed with, mentors. All of those people have been able to contribute in a way that has been extremely meaningful to me to gain perspective, work on my values, and implement any type of goals that I have. So, when I'm often asked about that one individual who made the most difference, it's the sum total of my life experiences with people who have just been incredible individuals and contributing to my world perspective.
Well, it sounds like it's a culmination of a bunch of different people, and what I'm hearing, a bunch of different experiences.
Absolutely.
Okay. So before we wrap up our amazing conversation, man, and I'll tell you this, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I like you when we did our pre-interview, but I like you even more now.
Thank you.
You're a cool dude, and you've done some really cool stuff. And what I love about you, Mark, is that you mentioned that you said, I know I have privilege. And, you could easily just live your life right now as a law enforcement officer, take care of your mom, support your kids. You're not obligated to support your community. And I think that it is incredible that you are taking this on. And if you would do me a favor, before we wrap up, I'd like you to look directly at the camera and speak to the voters. Imagine that they're on their phone, and they're getting ready to cast their ballot, and they need to make a decision. And this is the last doggone video that they see before they do it. I want to give you the last word.
Yeah, great. Well, I appreciate you saying, recognizing the fact that not every elected official has to do those things. Not every elected official has to stand up and step away from their private life to serve. But for me, I feel compelled to serve. I feel compelled to use my privilege and any success that I've had to be able to contribute to the betterment and the success of my fellow community members. And I think especially now, more than ever, our district needs representation that has firsthand experiences with the issues we're facing. We need ground-up community-based solutions. We need legislation that fits our rural communities, not one-size-fits-all policies made for the I-5 corridor. And as your next state representative, I look forward to fighting on your behalf to bring affordable housing and living wage jobs to our district and ensuring common sense public safety policies prevail.
Ooh, that was great. If you enjoyed this podcast, well, I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you're still here with us, what I want you to do is head over to your favorite podcast and streaming network and give us a download, subscribe to the channel, and also let us know what you think about the show. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for the things that you've done. Thank you for the things that you're doing. And especially thank you for the things that you're going to do, because I know that you're going to do something amazing.